Alright, what we have here is a UMK3 PCB that was sent to me because the dip switches are not registering. You can put them any which way you want switch 1, switch 2, switch bank 1, switch bank 2, and it doesn't register any of them. So I have never seen this before in my life, this particular issue, and the person that purchased it under the guise that it was 100% working, but it turns out that it wasn't. The dip switches were inoperative. So in my troubleshooting, I decided to go, well, they sent it to me and said, can I take a look? I said, sure, no problem. So I had never seen this before. I wanted to try and figure it out. So my troubleshooting, I replaced, if you actually follow the traces on the switch banks and look and see where they go to this chip, which is U88, no, I'm sorry, U88, and they go to U89. So this goes to U89, this goes to U88, and you can actually flip the switches and get the chip leads to ring and not ring and have continuity. So I know the switch banks are good. And then in comparison, these two chips actually, they interface with the switches, and then they go right to this chip here, which is, what is this, U101. So I actually went through and verified that none of these were shorted, that none of them had any shorts to ground, that all the 5 volts and grounds were present. But I changed out these 3 chips anyway, U88, U89, and U101. I changed all 3 of these out, 101, 88, 89. Changed them all out, no change. So I had a donor board here, and I did some tracing and removed a bank and followed where it goes, and actually runs all the logic for these 2 chips run all the way over here to this chip, U32. I've already robbed it from this board, so I'll have to do some get one from another board. This was just, since this board's bare, I use it for testing. But all of those traces run all the way over here to this chip, and you'll see if I actually go to what I believe is pin 2, which is this pin here, no, pin 1, I'm sorry, pin 1, right where the dot is, you can see that there is a dot here on this chip, and which corresponds to pin 1. I haven't looked up the data sheet, so I'm assuming, but let's just call this pin 1. So if we go to pin 1, and we zoom out, and we go all the way over here to this point on U32, you can hear that it has continuity. So the logic, some of the logic for this, interfaces with these dips and goes to here, but I think the main logic for this operation is ran by U32. So I'm going to change U32 and we'll see if that makes any difference. But before we do, I'll show you exactly what's happening. So bear with me here. Let me get this off the overhead and I'll show you what's actually happening. So all the dip switches are on right now. The board shouldn't even boot in this configuration. Under normal circumstances, they'd all be turned off. But if we just, for testing purposes, I turn these all back to off. And if I turn switch 1, dip switch 1 to on, this should this should put the board into test mode. So as soon as the board clears the ROM boot, it should go right into test mode. If it does, we know these are working. If it doesn't, we know they're not working. So if I just turn the test rig on, you can see that the board boots and operates. But we'll skip past this here. Alright, so it did not boot into the test menu, so I'll manually do that. There we go. If I go to diagnostic test, dip switch test, they all off. See, I have switch 1, bank 1, switch 1 on, and it switch 1 test switch. It doesn't register. I can turn all these on here, and it doesn't register any of them. So that's the problem. Let's turn this back to where it's just number 1. So if we fix it, we'll know immediately. Okay, so everything is off except switch 1, bank 1, switch 1. So bank 1, switch 1. So as soon as it boots up, it should go right into the test. So that's how we'll know if we fix it, if and when we fix it. Like I say, I've already replaced these 3 chips. Sorry. These 3 chips that interface with these. The only other chip that I could find that interfaces is U32. So let's get that changed out and see what we get. Okay, so I got the hot air station running here. It's ready to go. Let me zoom in. Now ideally you'd put some liquid flux around here or something, but I don't have any liquid flux. It'll still come off just fine without the flux and without having to heat the board too much, so it shouldn't be too difficult. So we'll just heat this up here. And I should add that the board's already wonky and wobbly, so if it's wobbly afterward and you notice, it's not because of something I did. I didn't warp the board or anything. So we'll just keep trying here until we get it loosened up. There we go, lift it right off. And put this away. And there's our chip. So let's grab another one off of another board. It'll be the same process. I'll grab that chip and we'll put it on this one and see what we get. So stand by one moment. Alright, so this was the donor board. I just robbed the chip off of this other donor board. Here is the original one. It's got an X on it. This is the one I took off of our problem PCB. And here is the replacement that I got off the board you just saw. So we're going to set this one aside. And we'll set this one aside. And let's get all of this prepped here. See how close I can zoom in. That's probably going to have to be it. So let's get rid of all of our original solder. Oops. My iron is falling apart. Yeah, I don't have any liquid flux, which would help this immensely, but it'll still work out just the way that it is. Get all this old stuff off of here. Okay, so if we take a look, you can see the pads are all present. None of them are ripped, none of them are broken. They're all in good shape. We don't have any bridges. Everything is looking good. I wish I had a microscope. That would help out me and you. But I think we'll be okay. Alright, so let's throw some flux down on this puppy. Let's see, how can I do this best here? Let's go about it this way. Let's just put some here and we'll just work around here. There we go. That should be okay. Yeah, you know, normally you don't want to touch this stuff, but I don't care. Okay. Now, let's flow some new solder on here. Okay. I think that'll work. Oh my God, sorry. Sorry. I'm so sorry about that. Here, I heard you guys, I could hear you screaming, fix the camera. This is all I was doing, was I was adding new solder and going like this. You know, as I add it, just flow it onto all the pads. The flux helps it from creating bridges. And I think we're good. So, yep, let's, I don't see any bridges. Bridges are gone. Okay, so looking at this, everything appears to be ready for our new chip. Just go over this one more time. Okay, I think that'll work. Let's get our new chip, make sure our pins are good. And, yep, no bent pins. Everything looks good. Let's see, we're good to go. Now, the orientation. If I'm not mistaken, it was this way. And yeah, you can see how there's a round edge here. What the hell happened to my tweezers? That's better. Okay, so you can see the round part here as opposed to the square, 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 and the 45 or 90, 45. And if you look at the chip, it's got the little knob here for the orientation, so it should go this way. But yeah, I'm positive it goes this way, and the flux helps keep it in place, so when we use our hot air station, we can push down on the chip and it won't move on us. Am I leaning into the camera frame? Sorry about that. It's hard to see. And of course, this may not work at all. This may not fix our issue at all. This is a real bugger sometimes. Okay, I think that's good. Okay, I think we're good there. I think that is good. As you can see, that looks pretty good. Alright, so now the time is upon us to flow that back. And while the gun's warming up, let me double check real quick. Okay, sorry I had to walk away for a minute, but I'm back. So, yep, that orientation is correct, and we're still lined up fairly well. So let's get this flowing. And we'll push down. Give it a moment. That should be good. And then we'll go through and check our legs. Oh, too far. All right, so that one's loose. You know what we really should do is just go ahead and let's just go ahead and do this. That should get it for us. Okay, now let's check our legs here. Fairly certain that that's good. Okay, that's good. Okay. All right, so I think we're good. And another way we can tell here is we can clean up all of our flux, and by scrubbing all of it off, if any legs are loose, we'll see. One more time. Let's get any remaining alcohol out from under the chip. Ideally, you'd have compressed air, but this is amateur hour. Okay, I think that's good. Let's take a look. And there you have it, a nice clean install. Let's check to see if any pins got bent. Nope, that's all good. There's no bridges. This side, no bent pins, no bridges. If it'll focus, let me zoom out a bit. There you go, no bent pins, no bridges. No bent pins, no bridges. Get in frame there. No bent pins, no bridges. I say we're good to try it. If I messed it up, we'll try a good reflow, but I think we've got it. A nice, good, quick install. Fingers crossed, this fixed the problem. Put our stuff away. Let's hook up the board. Oh, hang on. Hang on, don't fall. All right, let's see here. All right, so A, we are hoping that the board boots back up and works just fine. And B, we're hoping that it boots into the test menu, because that's what this dip switch should do. So assuming that chip was the issue, which I, 50-50, because I already changed out these three. Let's see what happens. Hopefully it works. Yes, okay. No issues changing out the chip. That is good news. Come on, fingers crossed. Yes! Diagnostic test, dip switch. Yes! All right. Man, I wish I would have done that earlier, because I went through the headache of changing out these three chips. And it just, I even took out this chip, but this chip here interfaces with the player 4 controls. You see here player 4, maybe you can't see. It's hard to see because of the light underneath, but this is the player 4 input, which isn't used. Player 3 is the input that you use for your low kick, low punch and run. So I need to put this chip back in. In theory, it probably would be just fine without it installed, but some of the data from this chip goes through these buffers and goes over to here, so I thought this might have been an issue. So I still got to change that out. I removed it and didn't put a new one in because I realized it had nothing to do with it, thinking about being part of player 4. But yes, that is the problem. U32 was the culprit, and if I flip these switches live, it should change. There you go. Hot diggity and shazam. So let's put this back to free play. Let's turn all these off. Oop, hold on. Okay, free play was 5, 6, and 7 on 1, which are these three. That should be good. Yep, 5, 6, and 7. That should be free play. Yep, free play. And we'll turn the attract sounds off, which is 5 on 2, which is this one. Alright, attract sound, no attract sounds. So let's reset the board. And I'll make sure all this is good before sending it back to the owner. But it looks like we are successful on this repair. Yes. Alright guys, I'll do a full testing and everything to make sure everything's good, but looks like our repair was successful, and it just goes to show how sometimes it can be pretty easy when you have other boards to, I still don't have schematics, so when you have other boards to do testing on, you can see this one's have been heavily modified and it still didn't work and became a parts board, but I was able to, oh not this one, the other one here. Here we go. This is the one I removed. I was able to trace the wiring. You see how all of these dip switches, all these traces just go down and feed this whole row. This row is all of, these are the commons through the buffers, and then these all just feed right to the chip, both sides. And then this pin right here, the very pin number 1, ties to this pin number 1 and goes all the way over here to, I think it's pin 4. This one right here. Goes all the way to right there. So that was the culprit, bad U32. So alright, I'm glad I could get this solved and figured out for the owner, because he was kind of pulling his hair out as to what it could have been. And I guess I'll go ahead and leave the attract sounds off and the free play on. So yeah, I'll get this chip replaced. On all honesty, it probably doesn't even need to be there because you don't use player 4, you only use player 3. but I'll go ahead and put it in because it should be there and I took it out. So for the sake of completeness, I'll get that back in. Otherwise, yep, repaired. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something, and we'll see you next time.